Welcome to my World History Notes, where I read from the book I wrote to teach homeschoolers world history. A Bible believer looks at world history, which you can find on lulu.com, amazon.com, or at the Bible Baptist bookstore, or just follow me here. So, right now, we're talking about the beginning of World War II. So, in the process of talking about World War II, I'm going to review some of the things we've already discussed by necessity, beginning with some things I didn't go over in the last section. Austria began to develop private political armies in 1927, with the Christian Socialists organizing the Heimwehr and the Social Democrats creating the Schutzbund. In 1930, Austria had made a treaty of friendship with Italy. There was unrest after the Nazis took over in Germany in 1933. Nazi agitators staged demonstrations until the party was dissolved, but protests and even acts of terrorism continued. This is in Austria. Excuse me. Then, in July of 1934, Prime Minister Engelbert Dollfuss was assassinated after a Nazi putsch, attempted coup, or government overthrow. Austrian and German official animosity was at its peak, but the Italian and Yugoslavian troops, which massed on Austria's border, prevented Germany from intervening with its own troops. Hitler pretended to disavow any knowledge of the murder of the prime minister, and he distanced himself from the Austrian Nazis. In October of 1936, Prime Minister Kurt Schuschnigg assumed dictatorial powers, dissolving the Heimwehr and establishing the Fatherland Front militia. With Nazi activity working up to a fever pitch, he then sought pledges from France and others to protect his country. However, in March of 1938, Germany invaded and took formal possession of this German-speaking nation, annexing Austria to Germany. This was followed by a reign of terror. From 1933 to 1938, there had been a great deal of Nazi agitation in the predominantly German parts of Czechoslovakia called the Sudetenland, the home of 3 million German speakers. Beginning in September of 1936, there had been a German propaganda campaign in Czechoslovakia a year after the latter had signed a mutual support pact with the Soviet Union, with the Soviets promising to protect Czechoslovakia from attack if the French did so first. From March to September 1938, Czechoslovakia, which had a first-rate army, recognized the danger to it of the German annexation of Austria and undertook a partial mobilization plus diplomatic actions with the Sudetenland Germans. In September of 1938, the Soviet Union offered to help Czechoslovakia fight a war, if need be, against Hitler's Germany. This was the war that the world needed, if it needed one at all, to pit the two greatest villains against each other. However, Britain and France tried to intervene with diplomacy, mainly with appeasement, a term which means you give your enemy what he wants and hope he still doesn't pound you. As a result of the following Munich conference, the Franco-Soviet agreement to help Czechoslovakia was broken, and the Soviet Union was isolated as a player. Britain and France didn't want the USSR's help against Germany, and Germany was Soviet's natural enemy, but its opportunity to fight Hitler via Czechoslovakia was eliminated. During this general period of time, Stalin had been convinced by forged Nazi documents deliberately used to trick him that he had a great many enemies in his government and army. This resulted in the paranoid Stalin's Great Purge, whereby many thousands of people were executed, particularly officers in the Red Army. The repression reverberated all through the Soviet society and was known also as the Soviet Holocaust and the Great Terror. An estimated 30,000 members of the Red Army were arrested and murdered. Millions of Soviet citizens were arrested and executed or sent to gulags, the concentration camps. On September 15, 1938, Hitler demanded the cession of the Sudetenland from Czechoslovakia and threatened war otherwise. Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain of Great Britain flew to Hitler's retreat of Berchtesgaden in an attempt to mediate a peaceful settlement. Within 2 weeks, the Munich Conference and agreement was finalized. Chamberlain gave up practically all of Hitler's demands, and Czechoslovakia was dismembered by Hitler, his minister Ribbentrop, Italian dictator Mussolini, his minister Ciano, Chamberlain, and the French Daladier. France and Britain realized they were not prepared to fight a war to support any country against Germany. They were willing to surrender Central and Eastern Europe to Hitler. Only the Soviet Union stood in its way. America's FDR ordered Ambassador to Britain, Joseph Kennedy, father of future President John F. Kennedy, to put some backbone in Chamberlain and to promise that if he got tougher, America would stand with him. America, however, was not only not ready for war, but the people were generally against getting involved in another European conflict. The American aviator Charles Lindbergh would campaign vigorously against the United States participating in the war. So we'll stop here and we'll start with the events of March 10th, 1939 next. Thank you for listening, and I hope that you'll study world history and come to your own conclusions.